The alcohol free brain is wired to lead, teach, and build something that matters. And in today's podcast episode, I'm going to share all about why the alcohol free brain is capable of $1 million ideas. All right, Euphoric listeners, let's get into another episode of the show. If you tuned in last week, I talked all about the disruption that's happening with AI and all of these jobs that are becoming obsolete, and how you can truly protect yourself by standing out with a personal brand that is able to help people transform their lives, and how imperative it is to do that in this day and age. And today, I want to talk more about your brain power and more about what the science is showing of what happens not only when you remove alcohol from your life, but also this concept of how powerful our brains are in order to assure our path to, financial success, to riches, to abundance, and so many other things. Now, I have at this point of my career spoken to hundreds of women who've gone alcohol free and have told me some of the most intangible qualities that they got as a result. And when you first go alcohol free, it's like there's some things that are just so expected that are going to happen, like, oh, I'm going to sleep better, I'm going to have better energy, I'm going to feel better, right? But sometimes these intangible qualities are harder to talk about. And yet almost every single person I've spoken to who's gone alcohol free has told me about these intangible qualities. They feel sharper. They feel so much more creative. They get insights out of nowhere for brilliant ideas. They feel like they are so connected with their deeper intuition and their deeper sense of something guiding them in their life. And these intangible qualities are, things I've talked about a lot over the years. For example, I didn't get very many $1 million ideas back when I was a drinker. I tried. I liked the idea of being creative. I always wanted to be a writer, but it was so hard for me to actually produce anything meaningful back then. And it was like within a few months alcohol free, all of a sudden it was like bing, bang, boom. I'm getting such incredible ideas and downloads, which literally led to the creation of Euphoric, both as a company, as a movement, as a book. Go grab Euphoric, the book, if you haven't already. And just so cool to see how quickly that happened just by removing alcohol. And whether it is the creativity and the insights and the divine downloads you get, there's also something scientifically that's happening. And I've been talking about this a lot now in my social media and my content, but it's something called the alcohol free brain scramble. It's a phenomenon that you've probably never heard of, but it is basically a neurological proven window of time when you remove alcohol out of your life that your brain is scrambled because its identity is scrambled. Everything it used to believe about itself, about, loving to have a drink after work, loving to go out with friends, all of a sudden gets completely thrown up and confused. And in this moment, because of the heightened neuroplasticity that you go through when you go alcohol free, now anything can get scrambled. Any limiting belief, any limiting story, any limiting, program that you've been hanging on to about what your capabilities actually are, your sense of worthiness, and what you can achieve on this planet and what you can make your life into. And it's this really, really cool period of reinvention that happens. And what's so cool is that, I went through this. So I obviously had my own anecdotal evidence of it. And then my clients were going through it too. So I had their evidence of it as well, which was really cool. But was really amazing to see is once I started digging deeper into the research and the studies about brain science, to see that it wasn't just an anecdotal story, it wasn't just something that happened to this person over here. It is actually something that's proven that happens. And the reason why so many people who go alcohol free launch businesses, launch $1 million products, do something really big with the creative ideas that they're getting is because the alcohol free brain actually allows for that connection in the synapses in your brain. And this is the coolest study that I just learned about that actually was just released, I think, earlier this year that puts it all together in a really succinct way. So, the University of Minnesota has just found that when you drink, and I don't just mean in the moment of drinking itself, but just the behavior, the habit of drinking in your life, when you drink, you are literally fragmenting the brain's ability to communicate with itself. So we have all different parts of our brains. We have the prefrontal cortex, we have the limbic system that governs your emotions. We have all these different neurons and all these, different compartments of our brain And what happens as we pick up a drinking habit is the brain is diminished in its ability to communicate with itself. And so things like creative fog are really normal. I mean, that really explains that writer's block that I had for over a decade. You guys, if you haven't heard this before, I tried to write a novel for years, years and years and years. Every New Year's, I would make a resolution. This is the year I finally write. I would write for 1 week in January and then I dropped it and never did it again. And it just sucked because I wanted to be an author so badly, but I was going nowhere with it. I was in such a creative fog. And obviously, I also didn't have the discipline to sit my butt down and do hard things. It was so much easier to open a bottle of wine than write the next great American novel. And so that creative fog is something that I lived through very viscerally. And I'm just curious if that's something that you can pick up on as well. Have you noticed when there are, the times in your life when alcohol was involved versus the times in your life when it hasn't been, that you really have that difference of that creative fog versus that creative vision? And by the way, if you're listening to the show and you haven't yet tried an alcohol free period in your life, you don't know what you're missing. Be sure to join Euphoric the Club. We're going to walk you through a framework to actually lose your desire to drink. I feel like it's the biggest thing I've been gatekeeping for so long. I was actually going back through my social media to see a few times that I've talked about the club and, shared what's all in it and what's involved with it. And I could barely find anything. And I was like, damn, like this is the best kept secret that is not being shared enough. So it is not just a place to lose the desire to drink, though, which is so cool, is that it is actually a place to optimize the most incredible alcohol free lifestyle. So we have these incredible monthly challenges. We bring in guest experts. We do book clubs together. It is a lifestyle, it is a community, and it is the place to go to become a successful woman who doesn't drink by being surrounded by other successful women who don't drink and are doing the coolest things. Someone was just on TV the other day. Someone has been writing articles for huge publications. We have such cool wins in the club, and I think that is the place for you, especially if you're looking to really make alcohol meaningless and to really optimize your best life moving forward. Okay, back to what I was saying though. Let's make sure that, if this is something that you've already experienced, that you can name it as well. That yes, when I was drinking, I had creative fog. And another thing that happens is your ability to have visionary thinking gets impaired as well when alcohol is around. And this is what the study with the University of Minnesota actually uncovered is the brain isn't able to tap into its deepest, most connected resources of really visionary thinking. Just imagine what that means for all the CEOs, leaders, and entrepreneurs that are still drinking, right? Like we know the competitive edge. In fact, there's so many leaders, entrepreneurs, and authors, all these different kinds of people who've already gotten on the bandwagon who don't drink alcohol. I keep a running list of them, which is really, really fun for me because I'm just finding out the coolest people who don't drink. But of course, there's still people out there, leaders out there who are using alcohol, whether it's to cope with stressful days or to keep up with the social habit or to show some self sense of status or significance in the world. And just think of what happens in their brains when they're not able to, really impact this visionary thinking and this ability to move forward. All right, Huxley's in the shot now. Hi, buddy. Here you are. All right, love the dog. If you're watching the video, you'll see his cute white fluffiness in the show. And I just really experienced that as well. I really had that, lack of visionary thinking. I didn't get these $1 million ideas back when I was drinking. And I think it's really, really cool to recognize how powerful your mind really is. And everything that's made someone a lot of money, everything that's been really successful was once an idea. And if you're into the science of manifestation, think about things like airplanes, think about electricity, think about any number of inventions and innovations that we've had. They once existed in someone's mind just as an idea. And when they actually took that idea and fully executed it and implemented it, not only did it change the world, it definitely changed that person's life too, right? They definitely either made the history books or had huge legacies or made a lot of money from that. And so, what I really want to instill in this podcast episode is the power of having your full capability of having these $1 million ideas. And I think that's really important because I think, take for granted how powerful our minds are. We think that money, for example, comes from somewhere else. We think that an employer gives us money. We think that clients give us money. We think all these things about money coming from something outside of us. And I have a friend that I've met in another mastermind, and she is pretty huge. She's exploding. She's viral. She has some really cool things going on in her brand. And she has this saying. that your mind makes you millions. And obviously, it's her saying, so I want to make sure we're attributing it to her. But this saying is really beautiful because the concept is all about this idea that it's not the employer that pays you, it's not the client that pays you, it's not, being in the right place in the right time, even either. Your mind is what makes you millions. Your mind is what's capable of giving you the insights to have those $1 million ideas in order to execute a product, a service, an initiative, a project forward. And if you think about everything amazing that's ever been here on this planet, it came from someone's idea first. And I think this is really refreshing because it really puts the power back in you and it really goes to show that your creativity is one of the most important assets that you can ever create. And if you're someone who right now is like looking to get out on your own, build something of your own, build a brand, build a business, I really want you to anchor to this idea. And if you're already building a business, I also want you to really anchor into this idea. It is literally your mind and your ability to have creative ideas, insights, and sparks and downloads that gets paid you millions. That is really the difference maker here. And one, I think that's just so empowering because now we're not relying on anyone else. But two, it means that you literally could be working for an employer one day and then have $1 million idea and launch a business and be a millionaire or a multimillionaire the next few years. Like, that's how powerful this concept is. You don't have to be born into the right family. You don't have to have the right connections. It is the ideas itself that can make you so much money. And why is that? Especially in the time of AI right now. So much information is found anywhere on the internet. AI is replacing a lot of jobs. I know I talked about that last week as well. But it's really those who have personal brands that lead with concepts and frameworks that are really withstanding right now. And think about that. Think of like an author who has a beautiful concept, a beautiful framework, and they build a whole business around it and they go on and lead speeches all around the world around this concept, around this framework. All they did, this leader, all they did is took concepts that already made sense for them in their lives and they put them in a specific order and they made them their own and they massaged it and named it something specific to them. And that's their $1 million concept or framework. We are living in what's called a creator economy, where your creativity and your ability to share these concepts that are going to change other people's lives is your biggest currency. And so the ability to, have these frameworks, these concepts, new ideas, different connections that you're making. Like, for example, I love to make the connections between the alcohol free lifestyle and success and $1 million ideas and entrepreneurship. And the thing is that even though there's a lot of people who talk about the alcohol-free lifestyle online, I'm one of the few who actually makes these connections to the things that we're talking about here today. And so I love to be able to like really sit down and drill into these philosophies and read the studies and be able to, observe from my own life, observe from my clients' lives, and also learn from mentors and other leaders out there who don't drink and what that really shows about your ability to have success in $1 million ideas. And so maybe the way that I say things is different from the way anyone else says things because I am driven by my creative ideas and the creative connections that I have first. And what's really cool about that is I know back to that University of Minnesota study that that's what the alcohol free brain allows me to have. I don't think I would be so perceptive. I don't think I would have so much insights. I don't think I would have as many creative ideas if I was still drinking. And I already have the evidence. I didn't back then either, right? And I think that that is so cool when we go into this creator economy of what's really going to withstand AI, what's really going to make you valuable in the marketplace, what's really going to get you clients, what's really going to get you opportunities and promotions and all these things is your ability to do that. Your ability to put concepts together, to be able to change people's lives, to be able to enforce and encourage transformation at deeper levels and stuff like that. And so when you think of it that way, we have to protect our creative ideas. We have to not only enable an environment where we're able to have them, but also implement them at the same time. So I'm just going to end this episode with 5 quick ways that I ensure to keep my brain as receptive as possible to beautiful ideas, $1 million ideas. Because at one point in time, you guys, Euphoric was just an idea I had sitting on a beach in Hawaii. At one point in time, my 5X certification was just an idea I had. I was so scared to even go forward with that. That was back in 2022. I got the idea. I knew the universe was guiding me there. It was the best decision I've ever made. Truly, truly was one of the most incredible levers I've ever pulled. And just so much impact has been made, not just by, being able to say I have a certification, but the impact that I can see, not just from me going out and doing the work, but now training hundreds of people to be able to do it as well and really make their mark on the world and their stamp in their own unique way, but by having the solid evidence based tools behind them, that means everything to me. That really, really does. And if you are a 5X certified coach listening in right now, kudos to you. Like, you are such an incredible human. I love to see your work out in the world. And if you're interested in becoming a 5X certified coach, be sure to check out the show notes. We do have our application open now for the spring period, and we will be closing our class pretty soon as well, in a few weeks or so, depending on when this podcast airs. So you do want to be sure to get that application in so you can be the next 5X certified coach. All right, so we understand now the power of our ideas. We understand how drinking lessens our ability to even have these $1 million ideas in the first place, and how the most successful leaders out there are not drinking not only to protect their energy and their physical health, but also their cognitive architecture, right? We understand what the University of Minnesota study says about how drinking literally fragments the brain's ability to communicate with itself. And that's why you're stuck in such a creative fog and lack of visionary thinking. We understand that your ideas are your ability to get paid and make a lot of money in this world, right? It is truly the most incredible thing you can harness. It's not your connections, it's not where you're born. This is it. It's so important, right? All right, and here are 5 micro habits that I use in order to protect these creative energy of my brain moving forward. So, the first thing that I do is recognizing that sometimes we do need to get away from all the distractions. And for me, like I've helped to people helping them find their purpose. I've helped people, really discover what the next chapter is in their life. And if you were to ask me, Caroline, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I really want. I'm like, get yourself alone in nature. That is one of the most heightened experiences you can have, to actually listen to the universe and really have insightful ideas away from the distractions, away from tech, and away from everything else that's pressing in your life. Just go walk outside. Okay, it doesn't have to be like a cross country national park tour. Go walk outside and don't bring your phone. And go look at some beautiful nature where you can really just be alone with your thoughts and enable yourself to get the insights from the beautiful world around you. I promise you, it churns your brain in a really beautiful way. And what's so cool is, like, especially those of us who are more tend to like the overproductivity and workaholism, it can often feel like when you do stuff like this, you're not really working. But I would argue that that's like where your best work is going to come from. Like, close the laptop, get away from the desk, go outside, go on a nature walk, go drive somewhere with a beautiful view. I go on these walks, tech-free walks, all the time, and it is so healthy for my ability to have beautiful creative ideas. The next thing is kind of the opposite. So, oftentimes we can have really good ideas in a vacuum, but also sometimes, especially depending on your human design, you need to be introduced to a concept in order to formulate your own thinking about it and then adapt it and change it and mold it into your own creative idea. So, for example, a generator on the human design, which is around 60 to 70% of the population, I believe, needs to be introduced to an idea first, and then they get their own ideas. And so it's like we are always responding to stuff in our environment. And then sometimes this is really negative. Like, if you're on social media and you're scrolling, you're literally getting introduced to like 30 different people's ideas in the span of a minute, and your brain is going crazy and is like, this is like on fire. This is too much. On fire, and not in a good way, right? Because we want to be on fire in the good way when you are on fire in your purpose, not when you're overwhelmed. And so the way that I really tap into this is to not just scroll, is to not read a million different things with a million different creators. I love the power of books. Now, it kind of sounds obvious, but I don't know if I've ever told you guys how much I obsess over books. I read 92 books last year. That's a personal best, but I usually read between 60 to 90 books every single year, and I have since I've been in high school. So I have read, I don't know what the exact number is right now, I'd have to look it up, but probably close to 2,000 or plus books or so. And what I love about reading a book is that you get so intimate with an author's idea, but it goes deep. And so you're not getting fragmented ideas. You're not getting 20 different creators' ideas. You're not going through this like social media scroll where you're seeing way too much information and then your brain can't even keep up with it. You are going really, really deep with one specific author. And depending on, what you really want to be known for and what your zone of genius is, maybe you read a book about purpose. Maybe you read a book about legacy. Maybe you read a book about sales. Maybe you read a book about the subconscious. You see what I mean? Like you read material that goes really deep into a specific topic, and you are going to find so many ahas for yourself, right? You're probably like underlining stuff, you're highlighting stuff, you're writing little notes. And then you're also going to come up with concepts that the author never bridged together, right? Like you get inspiration from the book, but you're not just copying it. You think of it in a different way. Maybe you apply it to your niche, for example. So maybe you're reading a book that is all for, I don't know, like a leadership for leaders in corporate America, and you apply it to leadership and entrepreneurship. And so there's ways that you're able to take the concepts and ideas that you're reading in a book and completely, adapt them and change them for the context that you're in. And what happens with that is it becomes a brand new idea at that moment. And especially if you're able to lend in your frameworks and your concepts and your philosophy and your perspective, it really does become a new idea. And so that is another really good way that I like to prime myself in order to really understand, like, how can I keep the engine churning? And I just recognize that I do need to, feed myself other people's really brilliant ideas. And that's why I like books, because like you don't write a book unless you're pretty brilliant. Of course there's some really like bad books out there that haven't like gotten, traditionally published and no one edited them and stuff like that. But usually when you write a book, you are writing a book in your zone of genius. So it's a well respected work that you can really lean into and then allow that to feed your next ideas about the topic. And I know a lot of creators have done this as well and have even adapted books to really be able to take it to the next level in their own brand and their own philosophies and stuff like that. Okay, number three, the next one, a micro habit that really helps get your creative engine going is having a place to record your ideas in the first place. So it is really, really hard to, actually move forward with an idea if it's really scattered and, you think of things. And I have to say that at Christmas time, I got a Kindle, like the Scribe. Yeah, I was gonna say Scribble. It's the Kindle Scribe, and it has changed my life. So I used to record things in journals and notepads, and I try to have different journals for like different things. But you could see how unwieldy that would get really, really fast. Like it would be like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea, but I don't have the right journal in front of me. But if I write it in this journal, will I remember to grab it at one point? So this is not a commercial, you guys. I'm not affiliated with the Kindle Scribe, but I love it. It is a notepad, one of those digital notepads. You can write all your ideas in it. And now I have all these specific folders and notepads that I can write really specific things in. And it's just the click of a button. You can actually see it here if you're watching the video. And I have just found that it has really impacted my ability to capture ideas because I used to also do it in a notes app on my phone. But then what happens is like you just have like 20 different like, bullets or things on your notes app. And you're like, oh my God, what do I do with this? I don't even remember where the idea came from. So I like to, if I can, grab the scribe, file it away in the appropriate place of where I'm actually going to implement it so that I can capture the idea and not let it just float, into the ether, because that's really important too. The next way that I ensure that my creative force and engine is going really, really strong is allowing myself to be bored. And this is really also key with the alcohol free lifestyle because, in a way, I'm not really ever bored because I have such a sense of purpose and such a sense of like loving and obsession with my work. But at the same time, obviously, there's situations that you can put yourself in where you can't distract yourself. And that's what I mean. So, I don't mean in that kind of existential boredom I'm talking about, more of just like how can you put yourself in an environment that has almost zero distractions where literally your brain's thinking is the biggest like thing going on right then in that moment. And so personally, I love going to things like a symphony. When you're like just listening to classical music, nothing's really going on. Like you can kind of see people moving their arms when they're playing an instrument, but really you're just sitting there for 3 hours listening to like really heavy or serious music. You're going to get $1 million ideas there, right? And also it's the forced being forced to be away from distractions. You're not on your phone. You're not on the computer. You can't talk to anyone. You know what I mean? Also in nature, that's the same concept reinforced, is that you're allowed to, really sit with your mind and allow yourself this moment to be bored. And that's why I think that our shower gives us so many million-dollar ideas, is because you're not distracting yourself with constantly feeding your mind other input. You're allowing your mind to just really wander. So as much as you can put yourself in those situations, even just one day a week, I think is really important in order to harness that creative energy of your mind. And the fifth thing that I do is also recognize that because the subconscious is the most just aware and prevalent in the morning, just because of the brain states, the different wave states that your brain is in, the morning is your best bet to really harness some creative ideas. And so, what I like to do is allow my brain to be most creative in the morning before you distract yourself with other people's agendas. So, don't check email, don't check social media, don't do like the little small things that need to get done for the day. One, allow yourself to probably do like a free write or a creative write and really jot down any ideas that you had from your sleep, or just like, it doesn't have to be ideas all the time. Guys, like sometimes it's just stream of consciousness writing. You never know how things will connect. But then I really also love to use the morning time as the time to implement the creative idea. Because what's the point of having all these creative ideas and having a super powered alcohol free brain if you can't actually implement them? And so, one, that's going to take the structure and the system to do it. And two, it's going to take recognizing that your fears and your doubts are going to probably want to block you from moving forward with the idea in the first place. And the second one really can be addressed through coaching and masterminds and putting yourself in rooms where you can get coached out of that. But the first one is literally just logistical. Like you need a strategy, you need a time of date in order to do that. And the thing is that when you have a really beautiful idea that you want to, implement, nobody's waiting for it. Nobody even knows you had it. Like, for example, when I first thought of, launching my certification program, at like the very, very, very get go of that idea, nobody was waiting for that program. Nobody was expecting me to deliver it. You know what I mean? And in the moment, I was running other programs and I had other deliverables and I had other more pressing priorities where, people were actually expecting things out of me. So you have to understand that almost any new idea you're going to have has no urgency to it. It's probably one of the most important things you can move forward to. So it's very important, but it's not urgent. And that's what Tony Robbins does when does this really cool matrix of really recognizing what ideas you have and what goals you have and what priorities you have that are urgent and important, urgent, not important, not important, urgent, all the different kind of permutations of that. Recognizing that your brilliant insights and the things that it's going to get you paid a lot of money in this world are not urgent. And so you really have to find a system in order to work on things that no one's waiting on, that no one is expecting out of you. And so for me, the morning is the best. I actually try, and obviously not every day is like this, but I actually try not to have any calls on my calendar until about noon so that I can spend the morning working on the biggest needle moving idea that I have. And I have just found, like, ever since 2026 started, I have been a creative engine. I think I've always been creative. I know it's my life purpose to be creative. I am a life purpose 11. And if you've never heard of that, there's an amazing book. It's The Life You Were Born to Live. I love it. It is such a good indicator of what you were put on this planet to do. So I am here to be creative, but even though that's my specific life purpose, I'm pretty sure all of us have that theme to some extent. We were put on this planet to have our creative energies shared, our gifts with the world shared, our zone of genius shared, and we're meant to help people through that. Like there's just no one denying that everybody has that. And so when I'm able to like really focus on a creative project in the morning and set aside time to actually implement it and get things going, it is so much better for me than just going from repetitive task or administrative thing or anything like that. Like I'll save that work for the afternoon if I can. And so things like writing my second book have been happening, in the mornings. Things like working on new like leads and not leads, lead magnets and freebies, new blogs, like just really things that are just new concepts that I want to develop are happening more in the morning. And I've been loving that. It has been like really cool to see this creative engine going. And it doesn't mean that every idea you have is going to be $1 million idea, of course, but it definitely has the potential. And it's just so cool to protect that, obviously, by not drinking. We know that, right? We know that that is really a difference maker when it comes to this. Believing in the power that you have $1 million ideas and that literally, Even if you don't like love your life circumstances right now, you could have $1 million idea and everything could change. And also recognizing that abundance doesn't come from outside of you. It does come from within. It comes from your ability to create value in this world. And that is the ability to create your creative ideas. So hopefully some of these tips were helpful in order how to actually do that and set aside time to do that. It's so funny, but I was like one of those little geeky kids that like prided myself on my intellect. It's a value that I always had, and that's why I think I always gravitated to reading books and studying and learning things, which is just great for my profession now because it all gets to come together. But if I knew the science of how much alcohol affects my ability to have that level of intellect and to have an ability to think like a visionary and to really put things together in abstract ways and have creative insights and just be like, have a competitive edge because of that and know that that's like what's actually going to get me paid in this world, I might have not been as attracted to alcohol from the get go because that's something I always really prided myself on. And not all of us are super excited about like, just feeling a little healthier. I think sometimes for some of us, this is the angle that really sustains an alcohol-free life of like, I am not going to deaden the sharpest tool that I have to live an incredible life, which is my brain and your ability to generate $1 million ideas. So now go off, try these tips, let me know what ideas you're having. And if you want to really use the power of your mind to create a business that can change so many lives and change your financial future forever, I really do recommend launching your own business as a personal brand, as someone who makes transformations for other people. You guys have heard me talk about this, but if you haven't gotten certified yet, I would encourage you to check out the 5X certification because you are actually going to graduate as a subconscious change expert in 5 different modalities: mindset coach, alcohol free empowerment coach, success coach, NLP practitioner, and hypnosis practitioner. These are 5 separate certifications that you graduate and walk away from when most certifications only offer you one. We also train you in launching a personal brand and a coaching practice. And I give you every strategy I use to go from 0 to 6 figures. And we spend half of the program actually implementing that together. So it's not just something you're learning, you're doing it in real time. Plus, we have the most badass immersion in Southern California at the end of the program. So our applications are open right now. Be sure to go into the show notes to grab your link to apply. I'll see you on an interview, and I hope you enjoy this podcast episode.